Welcome back to Jerusalem. As the latest flare-up in violence enters its second week, Israel claims its airstrikes have destroyed miles of Hamas tunnels. It also claims to have taken out a commander from Islamic Jihad, a militant group that is closely linked to Iran. Hamas has fired yet more rockets across into southern Israel, hitting the coastal town of Ashdod, where several people were reported to have been injured, although likely injured, it is said. With international diplomats working very hard to end the military conflict, Israel finds itself yet again under pressure from traditional allies in the West. At the same time, it has also been said that the United States has not put enough pressure on Israel to end the violence. The last time they had a war with Gaza here in 2014, they sent their Secretary of State, John Kerry, to sort things out. It took him quite a few weeks to do so. They have not sent someone as high level as that this time, which many people here think is a green light to Israel. Now, I just want to tell you, we spent the day trying to talk to as many people as possible. We found it very difficult to get anyone who is Jewish Israeli to talk to us on camera because it is a religious holiday. So I hope you bear with us. The skyline of Jerusalem, baked in the sun, swept by the wind, and down below in the chasm of streets, silence. It's Shavuot, a Jewish religious holiday, and part of the observance is avoiding electricity. Cars are rare. Everybody walks. You wouldn't know there is a war on. A mere hour's drive away in Gaza, there's also a problem with electricity. This was last night. The Israelis have destroyed the territory's ability to generate it for more than a few hours a day. Sounds like a model aeroplane? It isn't. The scariest sound in Gaza belongs to an Israeli drone, and it rains terror from above with extraordinary precision. Beneath a plume of smoke, the house of a Hamas leader. He wasn't at home, and now he doesn't have a home. This was the car of an Islamic Jihad leader. He didn't survive. Israel is picking off the leadership of the Gaza Strip one by one. It says it does everything to avoid civilian casualties. But when buildings are collapsed like pancakes, the innocent will die, and they have. So far, at least 58 children and 35 women. In Gaza, everyone is living on borrowed time and waiting for what comes from above. The discovery of 6-year-old Susie was hailed like a miracle. She'd been buried under rubble for 7 hours. She lost her little brother, but kept her father. I had put them in what I thought was a safe room, he said. Funerals are keeping many busy here, and for every killed Gazan, who knows how many more are recruited to the cause of revenge against Israel. But in the land of the Bible, it's not so much an eye for an eye, but roughly an eye for 17 eyes. That is the current ratio of Israeli to Palestinian dead. Hamas fires its many hundreds of rockets every night, without precision and without much hope of penetrating Israel's missile shield, the Iron Dome. Here they destroyed a house in Ashdod. No doubt the intention was to kill, but the family had gone to the shelter as soon as the siren sounded. Sirens are indeed the sounds that disturb Israel's normality. They stop traffic. Here on Saturday, they cleared the beach in Tel Aviv, where this almost fully vaccinated population is determined to regain life after COVID, whatever happens a short drive away in Gaza, in that parallel universe. But for the first time, this latest round of hatred has shown that the universes can no longer be kept apart. We went to the town of Lod, or Lid as the Palestinians call it, scene of some terrible rioting last week, in which gangs of Israeli youth, some of the militant settlers, clashed with Arab men. A Jewish man died of his injuries today. All that is left are some smouldering wreckages, a few cars, a truck, a synagogue that was set on fire. Israeli border police, usually keeping an eye on the country's embattled perimeter, are now posted on every other street corner. It feels tense. Until last week, Lod was a very ordinary Israeli town where Palestinian and Jewish citizens of Israel had lived side by side for decades in a very delicate balance. It was that balance that was so badly upset by the events here last week. And it is the events last week which caused the President of Israel to warn that if this isn't contained, then there's a real danger of civil war inside Israel for the first time ever. 30% of the population here are Palestinian citizens of Israel, like Wissam Arbaga, fluent in Hebrew and Arabic, the only Palestinian football coach in a local Jewish team.
I was always a second-class citizen of Israel. We don't have the same thing. It's always the Arabs who are second class. Our homes are destroyed when we don't have the right permits. We want equality. This is one city and we are all one. But if there is provocation, we will not be cowed. We will stand up for ourselves.
Israeli artillery taking aim at Gaza. Expect more salvos to fly in both directions and more casualties. But the real question haunting Israelis today is, could this conflict implode on Israel itself? And the next test, I should say, of this will actually come tomorrow, when there'll be a national strike, a general strike, announced for the Palestinians in the occupied territories, just up the road from here in Ramallah, for instance, which is the headquarters of the Palestinian Authority on the West Bank. Now, everyone is waiting to see whether that general strike, that call for action, will be taken up by the Palestinian citizens of Israel inside this country. 20% of the population of Israel, which is 9 million people, is Palestinian. So it'll be interesting to see to what extent there'll be solidarity there. And if that is the case, if there is again trouble inside Israel tomorrow in those Palestinian communities, then this government really has its work cut out to try and stitch together some kind of unity that has got severely frayed just in the last few weeks.